Hey everyone, so today we're going to be talking about one of the most controversial ingredients in tiki. Today I'm going to be talking about Pandan Syrup, how you can make it the easy way and showcase it in its most famous cocktail, the Pacific Theater by Brian Maxwell. So, I'm Andy, this is Easy Tiki Drinks, let's do this. First off, I just want to say that there's going to be a lot to unpack in this episode, and unfortunately, if my voice is a little different, it's because I've been sick over the last week, so I do apologize. So, first, let's talk about an event coming up. Tomorrow happens to be the anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. So in honor of that, I wanted to do something that would kind of play on that theme. So, of course, we could look at a 3 dots and a dash, which stands for V, which stands for victory. And I could do a modern take on that. And there is actually one in Minimalist Tiki, and that is the 3 dragons and a dash. I decided I didn't want to do that cocktail. There were a couple things I just didn't have time to make the right way, and so I kind of steered away from that. However, it did make me make a specific ingredient that is super controversial in the tiki world, and that is Pandan Syrup. So if you've been in the tiki world for any length of time, you know a book called Minimalist Tiki. It's actually where I got the recipe for the 3 dragons and a dash. Now, in that recipe, in that book, it is geared toward, it's called Minimalist Tiki, right? So you would think that it includes minimalist ingredients. In fact, the book is aimed to showcase the minimalist amount of rums that you actually need to start a tiki bar. The book then goes into its first recipe. The first recipe happens to be by Brian Maxwell, and I've showcased a bunch of Brian's cocktails on this channel before, and I will leave some links in the description below and some cards right up here if you want to check out those videos. Now, Brian's a great guy, and I've enjoyed talking with him on and off over the last course of the year. Here's the deal. When you open up Minimalist Tiki and you go to the first recipe, it's Brian Maxwell's Pacific Theater, and it includes an ingredient known as Pandan Syrup. Everyone freaks out about this because the book is called Minimalist Tiki, but everyone goes, what the is Pandan Syrup and how do I make it? And in the book, Brian talks about using fresh pandan leaves to make this syrup. Everyone goes, where do I get those? Now, pandan can actually be found in like most Asian supermarkets, but even then it can be difficult to source. So what I did was I reached out to Brian and I said, Brian, what is a simple way to make Pandan Syrup? And if you stick around to the end of this video, I will tell you how I make my Pandan Syrup in the easiest way possible. So we're gonna take a super controversial, hard to find ingredient and make it into a super simple syrup. But before I continue, let's talk about pandan for a second. What is pandan? Pandan is a Southeast Asian plant. It tastes kind of like dirt and vanilla in the best way possible. So let's see what we're gonna need to make the Pacific Theater. I'll make it, I'll taste it, I'll give you my tasting notes, and I will talk about the easiest way to make Pandan Syrup. For our Pacific Theater, we are going to need a lightly aged rum, an unaged overproof Jamaican rum, Pandan Syrup, Passionfruit Syrup, pineapple juice, lime juice, and absinthe. Now, I did have to make some substitutions in this recipe, so let's take the lightly aged rum. In Minimalist Tiki, Brian calls for a real McCoy 3. I don't happen to have that, so I'm using the Tiki Lover's White. Now, this is a bit higher proof and a bit more funky, but that's okay because the unaged overproof Jamaican rum that he calls for is Rum Fire, which I don't happen to have on the bar. So I'm gonna use Wray and Nephew instead. Now, the Rum Fire is a lot more funky than the Wray and Nephew, so I'm substituting and I'm kind of making up for that lack of funk in the Wray and Nephew by the more funk in my lightly aged rum. Of course, we've got Pandan Syrup, we've got Passionfruit Syrup. I'm using a homemade Passionfruit Syrup, but if you'd like to, feel free to use something like a BJ Reynolds. And if you want a discount code for BJ Reynolds, use the link in the description below with Andrew20 at checkout and you'll get 20% off your next order. And of course, we have fresh squeezed pineapple juice, lime juice, and the absinthe is for a rinse. So let's make this cocktail and then I will sip on it, give you my tasting notes, and we'll talk a little bit more about Pandan Syrup. First, this is going to be served up in a coupe, so get that coupe in your freezer chilling. In a mixing glass, you are going to add 1/2 ounce or 15 milliliters of lime juice. Next up, a 1/2 ounce or 15 milliliters of pineapple juice. Follow that up with 1/2 ounce or 15 milliliters of Passionfruit Syrup. Then we're going to add 1/2 ounce or 15 milliliters of our Pandan Syrup. Next up is 1/2 ounce or 15 milliliters of our unaged overproof Jamaican rum. And finally, 1 ounce or 30 mils of our lightly aged rum. We're gonna add some cubed ice to our mixing glass and give it a nice hard Coupe shake for about 12 to 15 seconds. Grab that chilled Coupe out of the freezer and give it an absinthe rinse. Here I'm using an atomizer to spray it over the glass. Double strain that shaking tin into our Coupe glass. And then we're gonna garnish with an edible flower. I don't happen to have any on hand, so I'm gonna use this prop flower instead. And there you have it, Brian Maxwell's Pacific Theater. Let's give this thing a try. Okay, so looking at this cocktail, it is bright green. You would expect something overly sweet and kind of melon flavored, right? Like Midori almost. However, on the palate, this is a much more complex and a very surprising cocktail. Up front, we get that vanilla from that pandan, which is followed by that Jamaican funk from the combination of our two rums. Or if you were just going with Brian's, the rum fire. It then leads way to that citrus back note that helps balance out the sweetness from the Passionfruit Syrup and the Pandan Syrup. It is a lovely, complex cocktail. All right, so let's talk about Pandan and Pandan Syrup. Again, in Minimalist Tiki, Brian calls for fresh Pandan to make his Pandan Syrup. I don't feel like going out to an Asian store and sourcing fresh or even frozen Pandan for that matter. So what do? Well, if you want to make Pandan Syrup and you don't want to have to go through the hassle of sourcing this, like I said, I reached out to Brian and I said, Brian, what is an easy way to do this? He said, look, Andy, there's a company on Amazon that makes a Pandan Extract. That company is known as Butterfly, so that's what I did. I went over onto Amazon, I bought a little vial of Pandan Extract, and if you'd like to purchase your own, I will leave an Amazon affiliate link in the description below. It's super cheap. It's, I think, under $8 for a small vial, and you don't need a lot. So to make my Pandan Syrup, all I did was combine 147 grams of white sugar, 147 grams of water, and 2 grams of Pandan Extract in a blender cup. I blended it on high until all the sugar had dissolved. I then poured it into my container, and that was it. Literally the easiest thing to make in the world. And I'll leave that recipe in the description below so that you guys always have it. It's super simple. It took me literally, I think, less than 5 minutes to make. And honestly, I waited longer for the Pandan Syrup to be delivered than I did to actually make the syrup. And it's honestly delicious. I need to find more recipes to put this in because it is a wonderful vanilla note. So I wonder what it would do to combine this with allspice rum, like a Dawn spice, but with Pandan. I don't know, maybe we'll give it a shot. If you know of any other Pandan recipes, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I'd love to try them out. Anyway, that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope I was able to take a super controversial cocktail and ingredient and make it much more simple than it needs to be. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, give that little thumbs up, click that little notification bell. I knew there was a second thing in there, so that you know when I drop new videos. Follow me over on Instagram and TikTok at EasyTikiDrinks. And until next time, everyone, I'm Andy. Take it easy.